Thanks very much, Alex. And I decided to give Alex a break over lunch by not asking him any questions about Keystone. But now that he mentions it, I might have a couple, because one of the things that happens to you when you're the mayor of Calgary is you are de facto a lobbyist for that pipeline. And I've been doing a lot of it, and I'm pretty sure that I don't get paid nearly as well as the people you actually pay to do that. Contribution to rec centers would be very helpful. So, we'll get back to that, and we will. So thanks so much for having me here with all of you today. The room is packed. I am told that this talk sold out very, very quickly, so thank you for that. But of course, at that point, I only had one real question, which is, did I sell out more quickly than the Premier? The answer was she had a bigger room. Apparently no larger rooms were available today. I was hoping when we first set this up that I'd get the opportunity to chat with you a little bit about the budget that we just passed, and that budget as a roadmap in miniature of what the city would look like. Of course, those of you who are following the news know that we haven't passed the budget yet. So what this is my lunch break from the budget deliberations, but I'm still going to talk a little bit about that. But what I really want to start by talking to you about, oh, and by the way, I should point out, you'll notice, those of you who've seen me speak before, something very different today, which is I actually have notes in front of me. The reason that I actually have notes in front of me, which I rarely do, is largely because I've been in budget debate for so long that Darcy, who's in the room who works with me, was terrified is what I might say. So he thought he would give me a little roadmap in case I get it wrong, and I've already deviated significantly. So, and I'll keep doing that, Darcy, just so you know. What I really want to talk to you about to start off, though, is wind. Not wind power, which you've probably heard about in this room a lot, but the windstorm that we had yesterday. And I think that this is a good opportunity to reflect upon why it's important for us to have a municipal government that works, and a municipal government that works well. It has actually been difficult for me today to talk about the magnitude of the storm that we had yesterday, which was extraordinary. The reason it's been hard for me to talk about that is because there was so very little damage. There was a lot of property damage, certainly. Significant property damage, localized to a few areas. We had some issues, particularly with getting the C trains running this morning, so I'm glad you all made it today. But there was only one firefighter injured. He cut his hand because of falling glass, and not one civilian injury. This morning, by 4:30, all roads but two in downtown Calgary were reopened, the debris was cleared, and everything but the C train was running again. Well over 100 of my colleagues stayed up all night, cleaning up the city, ensuring that everyone was safe for this morning's commute. And last night, as I was walking through downtown Calgary surveying the damage, by the way, last night was the first time ever I had to use my stern mayor voice when the policeman wasn't going to let me through the roadblock to get into downtown Calgary, and I actually had to say, I'm the mayor, and I have to be there. He let me in pretty quick at that point. But last night as I was walking around surveying the damage, and then I had the opportunity to spend some time with my colleagues at what we call the Emergency Operations Center, which is, by the way, exactly what you think it is. A room with a lot of people at a lot of tables and big screens and maps and cameras everywhere, and colleagues from NMAX and from the Alberta government, but also from every department across the city. From development and building approvals, because they know when buildings are damaged what that building actually is and what the extent of the damage might be. People from the fire department, from EMS, so that's provincial responsibility now, of course from the police department, from corporate communications, from bylaw services, and so on, all coming together to try and figure out how to manage this emergency under the auspices of the Calgary Emergency Management Agency. And what that really reminded me of is that we often have debates about what the role of government is, and at the municipal level sometimes we have debates around what's a nice to have versus what's a must have. And I got to tell you folks, the municipal government, this municipal government, but really every municipal government, does not deal in nice to haves. We deal in must haves. We deal in how do we manage emergencies? How do we make sure people stay safe? How do people get around? How do we ensure the flow of clean water? How do we make sure that the garbage is picked up and disease does not form? That's why the municipal government, which I may add only takes 8 cents of your tax dollar, the other 92 cents go to the provincial and federal governments, is the level of government that is, I would argue, the most important. Because it is what, in fact, keeps us alive, keeps us healthy, keeps us moving every single day. And did I ever learn that yesterday? And did I ever learn of the commitment of those colleagues of mine whose only laser focus was on making sure people were safe and that people could get to work and get to school today? And I think that that is a pretty remarkable thing. So, as we think about that, and as we think about the kind of community that we are trying to build together, this is a good time for us to take a little look back at the last year and then to take a look forward. And I have been spending some time over the last 6 weeks or so since the anniversary of my election, really reflecting upon what City Council has managed to do together over the course of the last year. And there's been an awful lot. I'd like to share with you some of those things with my own filter, with my own prism, so that we can understand a little bit of what the progress has been, and then a little bit about where we're going together as a community. So you may recall that when I ran for election, I ran on a platform of better ideas. There were 12 of them. And I'm very pleased to report that we have made significant progress on 11 out of 12. The 12th one, by the way, is about municipal campaign finance reform, which is an issue that we can only work on when the province allows us to work on it. So, it's province's fault. We didn't get 12 out of 12. But I can also tell you that the new Minister of Municipal Affairs, Mr. Griffiths, has been very, very keen on moving on municipal finance reform. So I hope to be able to report to you in the new year that we are, in fact, at 12 out of 12. Let me share with you some of the highlights. Building better communities. Earlier this year, we launched something called the Community Investment Fund. It's the first time ever that we have had an ongoing, predictable source of funding for capital for social infrastructure. In the past, we have a little bit of money from gas tax that's dedicated to transportation. We have a little bit of money that comes in that's dedicated to utilities, but we never had any money that was dedicated to things like life cycle maintenance of libraries, fire halls, parks, and recreation centers. And in the creation of the Community Investment Fund, we've set aside half of it for life cycle maintenance and upgrades, fix the roof on swimming pools, energy efficiency, and so on, to make sure that people can still enjoy the services they need, as well as for protective equipment for our firefighters. The other half is to new investment. Greg Melchin is sitting right there, so this next line will be a little bit challenging. Just don't listen to the next part, Greg. Part of that is set aside for the creation of a badly needed replacement for our central library. We've picked land in the East Village, and we have the ability to build just a jewel for the other city. The other part of it was focused on the creation of 4 new recreation centers and 3 new branches of the public library in northwest and southeast Calgary. That meant that for those recreation centers, the City of Calgary and our taxpayers were willing to put up 75 cents on the dollar. The other 25 cents we were looking forward to having our partners from the federal government put up. And as you've heard from last week, the federal government has decided not to fund those rec centers. This is a very significant challenge for us. And I want to just highlight something on that, which is that it's the federal government's prerogative how they want to spend money. Never mind that it's Calgarians' taxpayers' money in the first place. We send, as Calgarian taxpayers, about $10 billion more a year to the federal government than we get back in all federal government services. For context, the operating budget of the City of Calgary is about $3 billion. So we send almost 3.5 times our own operating budget to the federal government every year, greater than what we get back in services.